go ahead and get started. It's right at the 5 o'clock hour, and I will try to talk loud and project to the back of the room, use my teacher voice. Thank you for coming out this evening. I'm glad to see a good turnout so that I can address your questions and share some information with you. So tonight is the second of our community forums today. I had one earlier today at noon at the district office in the boardroom, which was live streamed. So you'll see Amanda over here, and she is also live streaming this meeting as well. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Richard Fabley. I am the new superintendent of the Williston Basin School District number 7. I'm very excited to be here. It's been kind of a whirlwind since May 14th when I arrived in town this past Friday. I'm very excited that we moved from the extended stay hotel, which I had my wife and 3 children into our new home, which we purchased in Williston. We closed on Friday and started moving in about 3 o'clock that afternoon. We're very excited to be a part of the community. I'm very honored to be the new superintendent here in Williston. So part of the conversation that has gone on, and before I go around the room and have you share who you are, part of the conversation that has taken place since I arrived has to do with our overall district financial outlook. And I know that for those of you who've been around, you know that there's some lenses on that, and whether you are from D1 or D8 in the past, I know that D7 is going to create wonderful opportunities for our children moving forward. So with that said, I'm going to stop, and if you could just tell me who you are and whether or not you have a student here at Brown Prairie or a grandchild here at Brown Prairie, I'd like to know that so I know the audience that I'm speaking to. Dr. Smith, you're more than welcome to come up front. They saved 6 seats for you. So we'll start right here.
Okay, I'm Whitney Bennett. My son Stetson will be in 2nd grade next year at Round Prairie. It'll be his 3rd year attending. And then we have an upcoming kiddo that we want to send here. And this is Adeline. She should be here in 2 years.
Okay. And you must be with them.
Yeah, and this is my second oldest, Nevaeh, and then she's in Missouri Ridge. And my oldest is 14, and he's going into Williston High School.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Justin Armstead. We have one daughter that'll be a 5th grader this year.
Okay.
I'm Lynette Armstead. I'm also the parent here at Round Prairie. Like I said, we have one daughter. We also, I think all of our older children have all been here as well. He attended here as well. So his dad attended here. So, and our grandchildren may attend here as well in the next few years.
I'm on paper. I have, one who is currently 6, so he won't be here, Caven. Then I have Adrian, he's a 1st grader here, and Miss Arabella is going to be a kindergartner this year.
I'm Heidi Lyman. I have 9 kids. 8 of my kids have been here, or will be, and all of them have loved it here. Love. They've also been transferred to Garden Valley, and then with the opportunity of coming back here, they just yeah. We've done it like in the middle of the year a couple times. They love our Prairie.
You know this guy, right?
Look, we're in from the
Prairie.
wilds of Montana. Thank you, folks, for coming tonight.
Ron, a lifetime member from Prairie Township there.
Okay.
I'm John Gads, we're a school board member.
Bill Thomas.
Hey.
Bill grandfather.
And I learned earlier today that he has 20. He's got me beat by 16 on the grandchildren's side of things.
Okay.
Kathy Walton, I'm retired. I have 2 kids. I went 6 years through Round Prairie and Pioneer. And I just want to get more informed of what's going on in our school districts.
Okay.
Tana Conlon, I went to school here and my son also went to school there. I don't have any grandkids that go to school here.
Okay.
I'm Ryan Seibel. I was the bus driver for Round Prairie this last year.
Dennis Marion, alumni, my daughters attend the school.
Terry Oilo, my children attended this school. My mother-in-law taught at this school many, many years ago.
Courtney Maris, my son's in this school currently, and I also attended here.
Okay.
Levi Harris, my son, attends the school here.
Let's go to the next row.
Randy Nessa, I teach 4th and 5th grade here at Mount Prairie.
Cindy Glavin, I'm a 6th grade teacher at the Bach.
Paul Rector, I'm a district employee that works throughout the district, including here.
Okay, thank you.
John Mogaza, just a concerned citizen, wanted to know what's going on.
Dawn Hollingsworth, children attended here.
Okay.
Jeff Wade, representing the Sons of Liberty, is a concerned citizen.
Thank you.
Bob Ward went to school back in the day when the existing school then is no longer here. Concerned.
And Bob, I recognize you from a previous meeting at the chamber. Welcome.
Holly Radke. I have a child currently at the school here, and our son also attended previously County School. We also are within the district, so a few miles from here, so concerned citizen, concerned taxpayer, concerned parent, kind of a little bit of everything.
Luke Randy, same situation.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for giving of your time this evening and for coming out to hear a little bit of information. I want to kind of set the context to how we got here this evening. So at a previous board meeting, there was a conversation on the agenda on discussion about Round Prairie. And during that conversation, the board took some action, and that action was to ask me or to direct me to come out and share some information with you as a Round Prairie community regarding the school. So what I've tried to do is put some information together and talk through specific information in reference to enrollment, numbers, some historical context, which you all have a copy of. Hopefully you can follow along with me. So as we go into the 22-23 school year, you will notice that the enrollment is as outlined on the document. There are approximately, or as of today, 6 kindergarten, 7 first grade, 11 second grade, 4 third grade, 5 fourth grade, and 9 fifth grade students, for a total count of 42 students. So with that information, if you flip the page with me, you'll also see that I put together a map that outlines for you names excluded, where all of the children that are slated to come to Round Prairie next year reside within the school district boundaries. And a particular note, if you look at the box that has got the red circle with the school, which is the black box with the flag, you will see that surrounding the Round Prairie School, there are currently 15, if I counted accurately, students that live in that particular box or zone or surrounding the school itself. And if you look in the box immediately to the right, you will notice that Judson and the box to the north and the box which is called Williston, there are 25 students who live in those particular areas. So if you take and you draw the line, right down the middle where it says Judson, everything to the right of that, the students that are to the right of that line are closer to the schools in the Williston town itself. So I thought that as information sharing, that would be an important piece for us to know as we continue our conversation and our discussion this evening. The most important thing that's going to come out of tonight is not the information that I'm sharing. It's the feedback that you're going to provide and the concerns and or questions and or comments that you're going to share. Because part of my responsibility is to bring that information back to the board so that they can have further conversation. And I want to also clarify, and every time you have a community forum, especially if you have another one right after it, you think of things you should have said that you didn't say. And I want to make sure I clarify, there have been no decisions or predetermined decisions made by anyone on the board. This is an information sharing and gathering of input and conversation. At some point in time in the future, I am sure the board is going to ask for a recommendation, and I will make that based on the best information that I have at that point in time and from all the feedback and input that I receive. So if you turn the page to the page that talks about enrollment numbers for the past 5 years, you can see that dating back to 2017-18, all the way up to the 21-22 year where we ended with 39 students, you can see that there has been a decline of enrollment over time. I'm not making any predetermined assumptions about that decline, only to say that what the facts are showing are that the numbers of students are on a steady decline. Now, Dr. Smith and I had an opportunity to meet a couple weeks ago, I guess it's been now, and have some discussion about why that might be, and have some discussion about things that have been done in the past to try to increase enrollment and those types of issues. And we also had some discussion about some of the neighboring school districts that surround Prairie and perhaps some of the reasons why people in this area are choosing to go to some of those other schools. Again, the information that was very helpful for me, being the new person, to have so that I could at least express that in a very articulate way. So much appreciated that Dr. Smith was able to provide some of that context. So if you turn the page to the next slide, and again, this is for informational purposes. Okay, you can see that currently one of the responsibilities that the superintendent and the board has as a whole is to take a look at the financials of the district and to really critically examine what that looks like, what that means, and how we're spending our dollars. So for the purposes of our conversation tonight, I took all of the expenses associated with Round Prairie. That includes staffing costs, administrative costs, the cost to cool and light the building, all encompassing for this school. And we came up with a dollar figure from the budget of $736. $37,000. And that, serving the 42 students that are slated to attend here in the fall, that equates to, as you see, $17,548 per child. Okay, so the information that is available on the Insights of North Dakota website does not have District 7 information yet because we haven't concluded the full year of expenditures. That budget cycle ends June 30th. So I would assume that the state website would have that information on a per pupil basis soon. I don't know how soon, but for comparative purposes, I wanted to provide at least a little bit of a snapshot as to what the state average is per pupil expenditure across North Dakota. So that's a starting point, and as someone pointed out, that's not exact for Williston. I agree with you, but it's all the information that I could pull for this evening's conversation. So you can see that that is a significant amount of money. Not that everything is always about money, but it is a factor that when we look at things through a critical lens, we at least want to share and be open and transparent with the community about the community here out at Prairie, as well as the greater Williston Basin School District number 7. So that's that slide. And if you'll flip the page, I think it's important for me to spend just a couple of minutes talking about the work that has gone on prior to my arriving, and that has to do with the development of a strategic vision for the school district. I was able to participate remotely when Dr. Schatz shared the final information with the board on the district's strategic plan, as well as the recommendations and guiding principles for facilities in the future. So on the district website, there is a link to that strategic plan, and I would encourage you to take some time and look at it. It's a wonderful document. I think the board had some very good, they had a good vision about including the community in that strategic plan. So there are 17 priorities, and within those 17 priorities, there are 4 what we refer to as strategic anchors. And those 4 anchors include academic engagement, which is what happens in the classroom. It includes innovation, which is being creative and forward-thinking about how we educate students and the programs that we make available to our students. It includes culture, which touches on school climate, staff climate, and organizational climate, and how we message, how we communicate, and how we kind of work with our community in making sure that people are informed about what is happening. And then the final anchor has to do with resource management, which is a piece of all of this, correct? So, off to the left, you will see that I've listed 3 items for tonight. One is, this is the communication and transparency piece, because I want to make sure that before I come to do what the board has asked me to do in terms of the future, that I've listened to the community and I've brought back that input that has been shared with me. That's why this is streaming live. That's why we're recording it. We're going to put it on the website so that we can go back and go through that information and share it with the board in a more concise manner. And then again, resource management. coming into play as the responsibility of our jobs, so the superintendent, the responsibility of the board is to make sure that we are good stewards, we make good use of the resources, the limited resources that we have to make sure that our students are afforded with quality programs and those types of things. And to always have our eye on the efficiency and the taxpayer dollars that fund our school systems, that we're not spending money in a way that is not a good use of that money. And it's making no judgments about the quality of the school here or the quality of the school, say at a school like Wilkinson or any of that. It's just sharing the information that we have to help guide our decisions. So that is a very concise way of getting to the real reason that we're here. And that reason is to listen to you and to make sure that if you have a question that I can answer, that I answer it. If it's a question I don't know the answer to, I'm going to tell you that. I don't know the answer to that. Keep in mind I've been here a very short period of time, and I'm trying to establish the actions moving forward that I'm going to be here and communicate and be transparent in those communications. I think that's my responsibility. I think that's why, part of the reason maybe that the board asked me to accept the contract. And so in doing that, I don't have all of the answers at this point in time, and I'm going to be upfront with that. But I do know one thing. As a new district, there are a lot of challenges that we have in blending these two new families together and moving forward into the future. And I want to be a partner in that process. I will also share with you that part of that investment, my children, my two younger children that are still school age, one will be going into the 5th grade, and one will be a kindergartner not this fall, but next fall. He will turn 5 and will enter into the Williston Basin schools. So I will have 2 children. So part of my investment is for them as well, to make sure that we're doing our absolute best for all of the kids, using our resources as wisely as we can. So I know by the turnout tonight that there are lots of questions. So I'm going to stop talking and let you talk. Please understand, I know this is an emotional topic because it was emotional earlier today. And I understand that. So if you're feeling a little agitated, take a deep breath and remember that I'm trying to gather information from you so that I can share it. Okay. Ultimately,
all these other rural schools that are affiliated with Brown Prairie and stuff, they've all had increased numbers then?
all I can speak to is what I know from talking to Dr. Smith, that there has been a steady decline in enrollment over the years, and it's been very difficult to attract new students to come to Round Prairie, and there may be a number of reasons for that. Some have to do with transportation.
Closing it down, is that what you want to do?
I'm not talking.
What you want to do is close the school down, is that what you want to do?
No, I don't want to do anything.
No,
but what I want to do is I want to share information. I want to share information with the board that they've asked me to collect.
I know, but is that what their plan is to try?
I don't think so. At this point, the only thing that they're doing at this point in time is collecting information. I do know that there is some guiding principles for the future on our facilities and how we're going to move forward as a district in making decisions about the future. I don't know what those decisions are going to be at this point in time because they haven't been made yet. They haven't been discussed. We're just beginning that process.
Why are we having this meeting then?
Because I was asked to share information, and I was asked to gather input about the information that I was going to
Like
share.
you said, you lost the $3,000-4,000 per student you're losing the year. Well, is it any different anyplace else?
Well, what I would share with you is the dollar figures that are concerning are the $737,000 that is being spent.
Did we actually spend that 737, or is that what we were budgeted?
That's the actual expenses
That's the actual expense.
coming out of the 21-22 school year as to what was spent on personnel and to operate the school. Yes, that comes directly from the budget. Yes, Bob?
So, I've been in the community for a long time, attended meetings for different things, county, city, school, and appreciate you taking the job here and trying to help our community. I have seen that happen within different businesses throughout my time in business. And I had a new manager come for a company in Williston, and he come in my office and sat down and he said, "I'm here to run the store and we sure want your business back." And I said, "Others have tried and failed." I said, if ownership, and in this case it would be board, doesn't back you, your hands are tied. And I'm just saying that from experience. Very pessimistic on meetings similar to this, which there's a checkbox, public input meeting, basically is what they are called. What they do with the input is they check the box and say they had it and this is what we come up with. You know, when you look at the numbers with the 737, for instance, if you increase your enrollment by 50%, that brings that down to 15,000 something. It was like $770 difference. There's always been an issue with overcrowding over the years. And all of a sudden we're talking that we're declining. Who's to say that everything is just in cyclical mode? We don't know where that's going to run. So now we close, for instance, if they do close the school, and all of a sudden now the numbers come back up, and all of a sudden we're scrambling either to build, and then that's a few years out, because to bring something back up after it's sat idle is very difficult. And I think, you know, they used to bus, this place at one point had how many kids in it? Those numbers are going to drop once you start getting volume in here too. And like I say, even if you put 60, 65 kids in here, you're going to get down to the average, the state average. So I guess there's a lot of concerns for me because, again, I've seen this through business, through county, through city, and a multiple different array of things. When they talk about transparency, it's basically like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. That's about what the public stands to hear anymore. And I mean, no disregard to you, sir.
Yeah, I'm not taking your
This has been the norm for a long time around here.
Yeah.
And every time we try to bring up some issues, the transparency and the openness of school boards for the public to comment on, we pretty much get shushed on that. And I hope it changes, and I hope some public input actually goes somewhere other than just a meeting and nothing changes. Thank you.
Right. So Bob, thank you for that and your comments, because it's important to hear that perspective. So from the standpoint of the school district, right, the greater school district, if we're and I'll tap into your business experience. The greater school district has all of these challenges, correct, that they have to deal with. And as with most businesses, you have limited resources to address those challenges. So part of that is to have the open conversation. This is the starting point of those community conversations. We have challenges with aging infrastructure in our school district. We have portables that are at the end of life that will require significant dollars to be invested in them. So I guess my point is this: we need to put all those things out on the table, have a conversation about it in a public way, so that we can decide with the elected officials and myself and in the community input how we're going to move forward, because we can't do everything. I mean, to the business analogy, you can't spend money you don't have unless you borrow it. And so there may be ways that we can do things more efficiently through discussion and looking at things. And you're not, it doesn't offend me that I'm new, so I'm coming in here and you might be hearing the Charlie Brown voice until I earn your trust. But you have to start somewhere. And what I would say is that, you know, in my contract starts July 1, so I'm here. I've put down roots in the community, purchased a home. I want to be a part of the community. I want to help use my experiences to move this district forward with, not in isolation of people that are in this community. But unless you have the difficult conversations, nothing is going to change. So these are difficult conversations that I won't shy away from. And I'm sitting in front of a community that is very passionate and has many more years of history in this school, some of them generational. But we have to have the conversation about what we're going to do for the future so we can have a plan moving forward. That's my point.
Dr. Smith mentioned making more grades available in this school. Is that something that you guys have discussed to where we can have? I've got 2 older kids that could have went here, but it stops at 3rd grade or 5th grade. So can we go to 8th grade?
I haven't had that conversation. Dr. Smith and I did not have that conversation.
Okay.
I would have to take that back and share that input.
I know that requires more teachers and so, you know, more staff, but then you start getting to where you can kind of, that budget starts going into other children to where, you know, we're talking about lowering the average per student. But it's just kind of concerning of closing down such a country gem is where us as parents are facing such a culture war with our children right now of this is such a rare find. And yes, I think that I personally need to get more involved with maybe PTO or something to kind of help get the outreach of this school, but I'm hoping for a chance for that is my concern, is to have a chance to have more students come and enroll here. Kind of, you know, take a leap, because man, the oil bit, it's gonna come back, and like teachers were scrambling, students were scrambling, not enough room, so they're building on in school, but they're not spending the money on their out of district kids either.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. So again, that is a point that we can express, I can express as I take this information back. Is there a way, or is there a plan? Has it been tried in the past? Whatever the topic that we're talking about, you know, we need to explore it to its fullest.
Right.
See what is potentially doable or not doable. What are the roadblocks for that to occur?
Yeah, is there, you know, funding that's being wasted in other schools in town?
It's interesting to see that their budget and their
To where it could kind of, you know, for one district now.
I don't think.
It's just something that I would like to be aware of.
The assumption that any money's being wasted.
Okay.
I'm just
Or
putting,
just, you know,
putting it out there
yeah.
that, you know, there are expenses and there are resources, and we have to have conversations about it, because we don't have unlimited resources.
Right.
So there's conversations that need to take place.
Yeah.
But we do have an entire building that we're currently not using that we could fill up with students. And we're already busing students from town, why are we not picking up more? Why are
I
we
was
not
just gonna say that.
getting
We
more?
could fill up a bus.
There's a bus route, you said this, you're on this bus route, you take this bus to that school. Why are we not getting more students out here?
I don't know the answer, other than to say what I've heard.
Do you need a pen to write this down to write it back to the
No,
board?
it's being recorded.
Okay. Because we need more students out here. We're not using this entire building. We're not even using the kitchen here.
And I know I have many families that would love to send their kids out here, but busing is the number one reason that they don't. So, I mean, I think it'd be worth it. I don't know how much it costs to run a bus for a month, but to pay a bus driver is what? $2,000?
I don't know.
We got a fantastic bus driver too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you guys,
Couple of them.
we watch him on the camera and he gets out and he does his checks like he's supposed to. You guys, he's on it. So we should be using our resources that we have. And we have this whole building. We have fantastic teachers and busing and I don't know.
I think you get a higher enrollment too if you up the grade levels.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's pretty hard to be in two separate places as a parent for pickup.
So
That makes it very difficult.
You're saying that moving the grades from 5th all the way up through,
Eighth grade.
okay.
You know, it's like that just makes it's hard when, like I have a preschooler right now, but when he gets into kindergarten, my son's gonna be, I don't know where, and I can't be in two separate places at once. So, it would,
So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna have kids in different schools. Just to kind of put it in perspective too, moving here, I just moved here back in September. The enrollment was beyond confusing and frustrating and really hard to figure out. I understand that everything had just changed and we came at a really bad time, but figuring out where I'm supposed to put my kid, and now I'm stuck with the 6th grader who has no school because I have nowhere to put him. I don't know what to do. And I would love to have him here for 6th grade, but it's really confusing.
So part of the strategic plan and the long-term facilities plan is to take a very deep dive into the demographics and where kids are within our school district and using the geopolitical mapping to do those types of things so that we do know, better, and perhaps into the future we can establish those boundaries where the issue that you're talking about wouldn't be so confusing because you'd be able to go to a certain location and put your address in and it would tell you. Yeah.
Just a set plan and
Right.
well need.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, what you talk about, there's a lot of variables into running this school district, but this is not the first school district that's ever merged, and had this. There's gotta be models out there that you can, input these variables into and move things around and see, how can you accommodate everybody and do it.
there are models that we do that. I think we.
You've got a lot of experience with this.
Yeah.
And that, I would say that's one thing that you should bring in, is your experience and a modeling system.
Doesn't have to take that long.
So we are currently looking at that, and we will be doing a deep dive into that as we go into the fall to share that information with our school board. You're absolutely correct. I don't know if that's been done in the past. I would highly doubt it because I don't see any of that infrastructure in place, but we are putting it in so that we can do that.
It should be out there somewhere.
It is. And we've already engaged this organization.
It is or it isn't?
So to piggyback or go back to the information that you provided us tonight. So on the Round Prairie financial implications on this page, I'm referencing the Round Prairie costs from the board meeting. The breakdown that comes up with that $736,882.
Yeah, it should be itemized
Yep.
by the.
Teacher
dollars.
salaries, teacher's benefits, there's a para benefits, principal salary, secretary salary, then the principal / secretary benefits, cook wages, cook benefits, cook mileage. How many teachers does this encompass?
3.
3 teachers, okay. And 1 principal, 1 para,
0.25 cook.
okay. How did we calculate a cook when there is no cook here?
Well,
When it all comes out of central kitchen,
So-
it would be nice to see that breakdown across the entire district, to see what is being charged here. And when we have a usable kitchen, it's fine, it's more than usable. Why are we paying $3,000 for transportation of food that's coming 17 miles, which is not warm when it gets here?
So the way that was determined was the time and the hourly rates that went into delivering the food. As far as the functionality of the kitchen, I'd have to talk with Linnell, our food services director, because I do know there were some issues with, at least in my conversation with Dr. Smith, that there was a reason it was discontinued. I don't know that reason off the top of my head, but I could find that out.
So then,
My understanding is that there needed to be an investment in the kitchen, and it was decided at a previous time to not invest that money in the kitchen.
the reality of it, because I was part of that conversation.
Other than that, I don't know.
Right, the reality of that conversation was, in which I was a part of that conversation, it meets code as is, it's grandfathered in. Nothing needs to be done. So they took that to a whole different level and said, well, because at the time at District 8, we had said, no, we're going to do this. There was different projects we were going to do, and that was tabled. And it said, no, we're not going to do this. And then they utilized that excuse saying, no, it's no good, it has to be updated, it's no good the way it is. No, it's perfectly fine unless you decide to make any changes. Then, of course, you have to completely upgrade. So to continually say that it cannot be used is very frustrating to the constituents when there's nothing wrong with that kitchen as is.
So all I can tell you is what I know, and I don't know any of those details.
Right.
But I certainly can find them out.
Right, so I'm looking at this piece here, this financial infrastructure. To me, when I think about that in some of these pieces, this number is inaccurate in the first place.
Most of the costs that are associated with that dollar figure are personnel.
Right.
So even if you
Understand.
if you took out the kitchen employee, it would still be a significant number.
But you're still gonna pay those personnel at other schools.
Exactly.
It's not going anywhere.
Yep, because you're still gonna need that many for 42 students.
Or a school in town, my wages is gonna transfer over.
So the wages, I want to clarify that because that is an excellent point. So within the confines of the school district, there are open teaching positions within the school system where teachers could be placed into that the dollars associated with their salaries would disappear. If that makes sense. So,
No,
okay. So in essence, there are open positions at other schools where if students were moved to those schools, those dollars are already budgeted, so it would be an elimination of the salaries that would be associated with their.
So that's 737, back to my question, is that budgeted money, or is that actual money that was spent this past year? Because
That's
you're talking.
actual monies that were spent,
Supposed.
with the exception of if you were to do the food service here, that number would change, but not dramatic.
So I have a couple of questions. What's the cost per student at the Innovation Academy?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, if you don't have that information, how can you even hold this meeting?
Well,
All you know is what this building charges per student. You don't know any other facility in the district.
Okay.
So how can we base anything on anything?
So what I would share with you, just if you give me a moment to answer, is that the information on cost per pupil is published on the website Insight North Dakota. That information for this school year, with the formation of the new district, has not been published and uploaded because the end of the fiscal year happens on June 30th. So that's not something that I control. The only thing that I can share with you is what I know. And that information comes from, well, it comes from the mathematics, is from the total dollars spent here at this school.
That I'm questioning.
Don't they have mathematics at the Innovation Center Academy? Same thing? They got the same.
Let me explain.
Numbers.
Okay. Technically, no, because the numbers that come up with the per pupil expenditure from the state level include many other things. It would be part of my salary.
Don't get it at the state level.
We're not talking about state level, we're talking about Williston level. If you can come up with a number for Round Prairie, you can come up with a number for McVeigh, for Ricker, every other school, and if you don't know your own finances,
I do know my own finances, but what I'm trying to
that's
share
what
with
we're asking, what are those finances per pupil at those other schools? Because you can't compare to what you're comparing on this piece of paper, you're not giving us accurate information.
No, but the information is accurate. Please don't put out there that the information is not accurate. It comes directly off the district financial page.
But we're asking comparing, if we're gonna
So,
compare costs, we need to
I
compare.
get your question. I get your question. You're asking me to compare other schools with what is spent here. And that can be done.
That should have been ready for tonight.
And
What you're doing is you're showing the 737,000, whatever it is, number, and that's a large number and that scares everybody. But if we don't have another number to back it up, to actually compare that's accurate.
so I get your point. You would like an analysis, and we're taking this input. Again, this is an emotional topic for people. We will get that information. It is emotional. It is emotional. We've discussed that earlier at noon, how emotional it was for you. So I'm trying
just talking
to,
loud so you can hear me, I apologize.
okay, I'm trying to get you your information, and please understand that this is a very difficult conversation to have. It's a very difficult conversation to have when you're talking about the type of dollars that we're speaking of, and meeting with individuals to determine whether or not we can do things in a more efficient way. The reality is, if you were to jump to conclusions, is if the costs associated with running the school were eliminated, that would save the taxpayers in the Williston community in excess of $700,000, because that would be an additional expense if those dollars were assimilated and students were to go to other schools. That's the reality. But everyone is jumping from A to Z, and the purpose of this meeting is not to make a decision. It's not to decide whether a school is being closed or not. It's to gather information. That's why I'm here.
So I have a question, and I think, I know you're in a really tough position here because you've been placed in front of all of us to answer questions.
And that's what I do. So I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, and so you just have to bear with us. But ultimately, I think the question is, why was this a discussion within the board to isolate Round Prairie? Why was a discussion ever brought up? Because I've been told, I didn't listen to the board meeting, but there's some here that could clarify, is there was a board discussion, and you, thank you, sir, and Kyle said, I think we need to ask the people. So what was the discussion for Round Prairie, and what was the board motion going to be that you were going to vote on?
There wasn't one. The motion that was made was to ask for the authorization for me to have these public forums. That was the only motion that was made.
But why Round Prairie?
Well, so I'll speak to, as you may know, the budget that was adopted a year ago carried with it a deficit of about $5 million. So when you start to look at the overall expenses for the district, there is a very difficult process that goes into trying to determine how we're going to conserve money. So from May 20th to today, we've trimmed the budget without having to have any school closure discussions, but we still have much more to do.
Understood.
So it's resources is the answer.
Understood. But take into consideration a year ago, while District 8 was open, this school district did not have a deficit. As a matter of fact, they had $19 million, and these students in this school was growing. And I challenge both you and John as you drive out, and you look at these numbers and you look at the maps and the student places. And I listened to your interview at Keys today and yesterday, and you said there's 4 strategic anchors in the new plan: academic, innovation, culture, and resource management.
That's correct.
So academically, I would challenge the board and you, sir, to look at the student scores, compare Round Prairie to any of the other schools with the same number of classes, class to class. And I would also, when you say innovation, when you drove out here, how many developments did you see? How much of a growing community did you see? This board, and I'm sorry to single you out, John, but you're it.
You're the only one here.
This current board has never stepped back and said, every reference is here are where our kids are. They have not looked at the families and the population in this area and said, how many kids, how many potential students do we have? Because not only are those kids, but the patrons in this area are paying taxes towards every one of these schools now. So that's your innovation, is you take a look at the population, not just your students, and see where busing. Could we get more kids out here because I can't drop one off, have the bus pick one up here or drop one off there or be in 2 places at once? And then when you talk about culture, and I'm sorry, I am very heated, so bear with me. But I did get a message from one parent, and she wanted to be here, but she couldn't. And her message to me said, and I'm going to read it. Other schools actually have a lower teacher to student ratio. Garden Valley has 1 to 10 compared to 1 to 13. I really can't imagine how Round Prairie is not fiscally sound compared to other schools. Dr. Smith's contract said he has to take a 15% cut if he has less than 100 students. Also, that he teaches music, he teaches advanced reading classes, the below reading classes, as well as his principal duties. And it seems like they're saving money by keeping him there. Also, that the superintendent talked about culture. I've been in the schools, and I absolutely prefer the Round Prairie culture. Those kids are happy, and probably the only place where my kindergartner has felt comfortable to get up in front of everyone and sing a solo. And so that addresses culture. And so resource management, as they said, let's look at some of those overcrowded classrooms. Because right now, if you close down this school, where are you going to put those 43 kids? And I'll bet those people in town whose kids are sitting in overcrowded schools would not be happy knowing that they're going to be more crowded. I think that there needs to be a back up the bus and look at a new approach at this, using those 4 anchors. And when my children were out here, I moved out from Williston, not a country girl, and they had combined classes here. I was just astounded and thought, this is not going to work. My kids are going to town. Ryan can attest to this. Back in the day with the combined classes where a teacher taught 4th and 5th, 6th and 7th, or 7th and 8th,
the thought process, and this fits into your innovation, is you have those kids who are falling behind, who need the extra teaching. You have the excellers. So you have a 7th grader with those 8th graders, and they're doing 8th grade stuff. You've got an 8th grader who's going to be working back at the 7th grade level, and nobody knew it. That's innovation. Thank you.
I saw 2 hands up. I think your hand was up first and then over here.
I'd like to say the people that were taking and wanting to combine the 2 districts, they were making promises to people around here that their kids could go wherever they wanted them to. And I have a neighbor that did want her kids to come to Brown Prairie, and they go into town. That's where it's taken some of your students away. That's how they got the votes to get to combine the 2 districts. They lied to some people, and some people they let them do it. And I think you'd have more kids here if they lived right down the road, you know?
So, thank you. I would encourage everyone on the public website, the school district website, there is a clip of the conversation that took place at the last board meeting regarding this particular item.
There's not quite a clip, but if you look at the last post, it tells you exactly where this conversation happened.
So there's a timestamp, I guess I should have said it differently, where you can fast forward to that point in time. I would encourage you to take a look because we're making assumptions that good questions were asked. The board did ask good questions, John included, and other board members. And it was decided as a board to go out and have this conversation. Again, I started the meeting saying there have been no decisions made. We're gathering information. And I do understand the point that was made from Bob earlier. Again, our actions will show that we're doing what we've said we would do.
I'm just saying that's how some of these, how they wanted to get the 2 districts put together so these people voted. Because they didn't want their kids to go to District 8 or whatever.
So what I would
Isn't
say...
that true? Isn't that what you guys saw?
And I know there's this history, so I'm trying to be, okay, I know there's history from 1 and history from 8, but I'm not part of that history. I'm District 7, and I was hired to lead into the future. So I'm trying to demonstrate that I'm listening to the community.
I guess when you find out where these kids actually go to school, the ones should probably be going to this school. Because they live close here. They don't live by Tech. So,
yeah,
you know.
There are, like I tried to show with the map, I took the information that I had, that I could pull, and show where the kids live that come to school here, because this is the school we're talking about, and that's an excellent point.
And you should show a map that shows all the other kids that are going to school in town that could actually go to this school. If you were to actually overlay that map with those kids, you would see our numbers probably double, if not triple. Because there's a lot of kids that are living here, that's what she's saying, that are going to town, that should be going out here.
And that goes into the whole conversation. I think that for the future.
That's how these people got to combine the districts, I feel. Because they said, oh, you could just.
Well, and what my comment is to kind of piggyback what you're talking about. You know, at the board meeting, the board chair, Mr. John, had mentioned, you know, the goal is eventually to be neighborhood schools. Well, you're gonna need this because we have all of these communities being built and areas. So, you know, I can't, as a constituent and knowing what that goal is through all these other pieces, how, you know, I don't foresee that would be a responsible thing to do, would even consider closing this. We're going to need it with all of the growth that's going to continue. And like they're saying, you know, if parents were given option or promise, if that's the actual case, well then maybe, you know, that needs to be reevaluated and they need to attend their neighboring school. You know, if that's the goal, then that's how it should be for everyone, including out here. There shouldn't be any special treatment in certain areas. So, you know, and that would increase the the enrollment significantly out here.
And again, the reason why I'm here
Yep.
is to bring that back.
The other part of that is Porta, and you said this is a whole new district, that reorganization plan, they wrote in the plan that there would be no schools closing and that they would use every facility they had because they needed them. So moving forward, we're being told and promised and presented one thing. And then a year later, when all the dust settles on the money and the budget and the resources and all of that, we find out that, oh wait, where can we go, what can we look at cutting? You know, and I'm sorry, I think that a facility like the CTE is a great addition. But if you're looking at cutting budgets to pledge $5 million to a facility to be built, and then you're closing something like this down, I think that there needs to be some more thought into that.
Yes, this is gonna be a tough question for you. If you can't give me the answer, I'd like you to take it to the school board and see if they can come up with an answer. If the school district cut out some federal mandated programs, some state mandated programs, can this district save any money?
So which programs are you speaking to?
The ones that community college does, the library around, CRT, and the other names you got for those kind of programs.
CRT's not a program.
Well, you got different names for.
It's
a federally mandated thing or a state mandated thing. Can you cut those programs out and save some money?
I would need to know what programs you're specifically speaking to.
Okay, we will have them programs that you're next.
You're talking about Title I?
I'll let my professional come
Yeah,
on.
so just so you know, many of those are mandated.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, by the government.
Do you
and
believe
by the
that we need
state.
those mandated? Because this is a school district, we can do whatever we want. You guys are the school board, you make the rules.
So I think part of the piece is grants that are being received. And we understand, we know there are grants that are applied for and received, and if the full grant is received, well, there's usually strings attached. There has been proof of certain things coming through the school district, over time, and parents questioning. I understand from the board meeting, I know she took over, Whitney Bennett, what's her name, the new student services director, she was referencing that. She said, yes, we have encountered these. Yes, I am working on these to eliminate those pieces. So that was assured. But however, the point is, those things are still attached to those grants. There are strings attached that are coming through. And it's a matter of, is the board, in the past, the question is there, who's really read through all of these pieces that these trickled down in the first place? And, that's not something we wanted in the district. Who is not doing their job, which I would think you're gonna read through those grants and make sure there's not those kinds of strings attached. And so, we're only gonna accept X amount of dollars, we're not gonna accept all of Z dollars.
Well, yeah, so to your point, sir, there are certain types of grants that are out there that do they provide what they refer to as seed money, with an expectation that you continue to fund the programs that into the future. I'm not a big proponent of those type of grants. The type of grants that I'm a proponent of are the ones like we communicated, where our teachers.
Follow-up, can you look into
Yes,
this?
I'll
See if we can save
certainly.
some money if we cut those programs.
Yeah, give
we
me
got
a call
personnel,
and I'll
everything
speak with you. I'll speak with you about any of those. But what I'm saying is, the grant that we received here recently from Grayson Mills for $20,000, there were no strings attached to that grant. That was a grant that teachers wrote for that was going to bring science, technology, education, and mathematics dollars in and equipment into the school, those are the types of grants that we should all be
Yeah, those are
supporting.
not federal dollars.
Those are not federal dollars.
Exactly.
So-
He's talking federal.
Federal and state dollars, or federal and state mandated programs, if we can cut them and save money, why don't we look into doing it?
Okay. And like I said, we could talk about specifically what those might be that you're referring to. But in terms of some of the things that we're required to do from the state level, they're not optional. It has to be done. It's a requirement under the Century
And
Code.
we are not, the Century Code is not law. The school board has authority to teach any appropriate class that the school, that district needs.
So we
I
can,
mean,
like
you
I said,
guys-
we
you
can
guys
talk
are-
about that further. I would encourage you to contact me and we can have further discussion.
Yeah, we probably will in the future.
I would like that. Thank you.
Okay.
Question on deficits. You're in the business, it's a school business, it's running a business to educate the children. And you have to run it as such. You got income, you got expense. Running in a deficit is very difficult to warrant raises to staff if you're running in a deficit. As an owner, I'm usually the first to take a cut. And there's been difficult conversations with staff when things slowed down, that we did have to cut some of the staff. And it was my understanding that there was some significant raises handed out to staff. I'm wondering how you justify that. And then at the expense of kids, because we can't afford this, we can't afford that, and yet the staff, some may and some may not have gotten raises, and yet the children are the ones that they're there supposedly for, to educate them and be a part of that. So I mean, it's like any business, you gotta roll with the punches, you gotta take the good with the bad. So if you're running in a deficit, it's very difficult to understand as a constituent why there's
So,
such
what-
raises being passed out.
Yeah, what I would say to that, Bob, is the budget that was passed in July of '21, which was a year ago, was passed with a deficit. As we look to close out the year, that budget will be balanced. So to your point, you spend within your means or you conserve. So that has been done from July of '21 to the current time. The second piece that I would highlight, at least the things that I've been in control of since arriving, was the reorganization of the district administration. And that reorganization was presented to the board at our last board meeting. And that reorganization will save the district administrative costs. The administrators that run the district, it will save the district $150,000 going into this year's budget. So that is action speaking to the savings that have been created so far.
So I get that, but $150,000 from a $5 million deficit is a drop in the bucket. You're gonna have to work over this over 7 years. So at $150,000 reduction, which is a step, but it is not, we're not out of the woods yet.
What I think you're misunderstanding. So the deficit budget that was passed in '21 is going to be balanced by June 30th of '22. So going into this next year's budget, we're not doing a deficit budget. It's not a good idea.
But you can still always take reductions in costs.
That's correct. That's
And-
why.
and which would lower the bills for the taxpayers.
That's why I modeled what I would expect throughout the organization by reorganizing the district leadership staff and saving the district $150,000 by eliminating positions that were formerly in the district that are being consolidated and additional duties assigned to individuals that are still here.
Right, but then we still come back to the piece of the cost of running a school, which you say it's this much per student. Again, with that, just because it's a budget still afford the facilities that we feel are still gonna be in need.
So,
Tomorrow's another day,
Yes.
which,
Yes. So what I would say, Bob, is you're exactly correct. We can't stop looking at ways to improve and decrease our costs. That's part of what we should be doing on an ongoing basis. But it's a start. 150,000 is a nice start going into July 1.
I wanted to piggyback on something Bob said about the expense to the school. So you know, in your guys' breakdown of the expense to keep this school going, you guys talked about the teacher salary, to feed the kids. So if you close this school, do these teachers does that cost of these teachers, are you gonna lay them off? Or what are you gonna do with the principals and the teachers?
There are open positions, and I'm not saying we're making a decision
Right,
to close the school.
right.
But their teachers would be put into jobs that are currently open.
Okay, so that expense that you're incurring here would just move from Round Prairie to a different school.
There are already budgeted positions that
But
are open. The teachers have left, and
Okay.
they're like fourth grade teacher left one school. That position's there at that school, it just hasn't been filled.
Okay, the cost of the student to feed the student and all that just goes with the student to a different school. So that expense doesn't go away either.
The cost of feeding the kids depends, again, whether or not there's an actual cost for that, or if it's funded, it's a funded cost, it depends on the student, but you're correct.
So some of the expenses here would just move from here to just a different school.
Yeah,
You wouldn't be
those
eliminating
Yeah,
it
those
necessarily.
expenses, so if you want to speak directly to food service, those expenses already exist at the school. So the way that food service runs is the cost per student meal would cover the cost of that food. So technically, if you eliminate a position or the cost to transport or whatever the case might be, it would be less.
Okay.
It would be less.
Okay, and another question is, in the reorganization plan, it says in there that no facilities will be closed in the next 5 years. How is the school board planning dancing around that?
So, without going into the interpretation of that, the facility, I think was spoken to earlier, the facility needs to be kept moving forward. It doesn't require that students occupy the facility.
Again, transparency.
Transparency.
I'm just telling you what
That's shady.
I'm just telling you what the legal statement is.
So we
I didn't write it.
No, we
but that's what
understand
it
that.
says.
We understand that. So now you know the passion and the frustration is legal terms, legal terms. So we have fancy legal terms to write things up to allow people to accept a reorg. And we talk about transparency, but we don't do what we say we're going to do because legal terms don't say you must. But I think Kyle Renner spoke to it best at the board meeting. He said, but we promised.
And the other thing is, 2 years ago, this building was packed full of people. I'm talking twice as many that are here tonight, begging the school board to transfer land to Trenton because most of the kids in these two townships go to Trenton. And the school board said, no, we service this area, so we're gonna continue to service the area. At that time, Round Prairie and Judson Township, the superintendent of District 8, there was 14 kids that went to District 8 out of these two townships, and over 100 go to Trenton or Bayville. And they still chose to keep this because we service the area. And now miraculously, 2 years later, it's not a big deal, now we don't need to service the area anymore. That kind of ticks people off because they were adamant they needed to service this area. And now suddenly, it's too expensive, we don't need to service it anymore, we can send those kids somewhere else cheaper. I mean, it's just...
What's really frustrating, and I know you don't want to hear about history, I know you weren't here for
No,
history.
I want to hear what you have to say.
This is when all things come into place. District 8 was perfectly fine. We didn't have debt. And if we went to merge, we would not be having this conversation right now. Because Round Prairie would be around to the end of time because we had the funds and the money to operate and keep this place going. A lot of people didn't want the merger. We got talked into it because
brought a lot of debt, not fine. Parents die. Parent B's kids, they get everything. Parent A's kids get nothing. And that's what we're here right now. We brought everything to the table, and now you're taking it all away. And that's what's scaring everybody.
So, thank you. I know you're very passionate, and I appreciate it. I'm not trying to take anything away. What I'm doing is I'm here listening to your concerns.
So I want to interject there because we say we're not going to close, we're not talking about closing, but when we had this conversation, if that wasn't on the back of the board's mind, you guys are. And yes, you're having these parent conversations, you're going to go to the table and you're going to give them whatever all this intake that you gather and everything. But is it going to matter? Because I think they already made up their mind.
They have made up their mind. They would have voted on it Monday.
Because we're not talking about McVeigh, Ricker, whatever. We're talking about Brown Prairie. Because we're the little guy and we want to shut the little guy up. And you want to take our money.
They hadn't made up their mind, they would have released, you would have had all the numbers from us.
Right. Yep.
Well, so I will share with you that, I do understand that there is frustration, but please understand that I'm here, I'm sitting in front of you, and I'm listening. And you guys, you are, I don't have
take
any
offense to that. We're
preconceived.
not trying to yell at you.
Yeah, I don't have any preconceived ideas about doing anything. What I'm doing is gathering information.
I don't think you do that at the board does.
Oh, exactly. And at the end of the day, it's the board is going to make the decision.
Okay, so you're gathering information, this is great.
Yes.
You didn't bring us any information to this table. The very little information that you brought is misinformation.
Yeah.
Like I told you,
It's
the
not
numbers
misinformation,
here,
it's factual.
So you haven't proved it to us. I do not have a list of what all of the expenses are and how we got to that number. I do not have a list of every other school in District 7, and I have no comparison values.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay,
We should meet again.
So what you've asked for is information pertaining to all the other schools.
We're one year comparison.
And that will be coming, but I don't have it. It's not been posted by the state.
But if you were able to gather Brown Prairie's numbers, you can gather every other school in your district.
Yes.
Well,
Whoever gathered Brown Prairie's numbers needs to gather everybody else's numbers. This is common sense. That's what I'm not getting. I understand things are posted. We're not talking about Bismarck. We're not talking about Harvard. We're talking about Williston.
And within your own district, those numbers should be readily available at your fingertips without waiting for the state to produce them for you. You feed that information to the state so they can post it. It has to come through your hands first, correct?
yes, however.
And that's,
So let me finish. But there are complex formulas that the state uses because of the salaries for all of the other.
Don't those formulas apply to Brown Prairie too?
And how'd you get
Say
these
that.
numbers? You got these numbers without that.
I got these numbers from personnel and
Yep.
operations.
So why
are the
didn't
two
you do that
things.
for McVeigh? Bring that too.
Personnel and operations I can get. If that's the comparison you want me to bring,
The
I
exact
can do
numbers
that.
that you have written down on your sheet for Brown Prairie, this personnel and
That's what
operations.
you want me to provide.
So is that what you provided to us right now?
What I provided to you is
That's
exactly,
737, is that personnel and operations expenses?
those are personnel, operations, and the food service.
And the
I
food
mean,
service.
she has the list from the board meeting. I just totaled it.
And so what about the rest of the schools in our district? How are their numbers compared to ours? We don't have to wait on the state, you should have them. Your district manager, your manager should have them at her fingertips and should be able to say, this is
If
what we
that's
have.
what you want me to do, is just to do the total number of students.
We want to
By
compare
the
apples
cost.
to
Whatever you did here,
Then we
to
can-
the other
Whatever you
schools.
did here, to the other schools.
We also need to come up with another number because we're looking at, we shut Brown Prairie down, we're saving $737,000. No, you're not. You're still paying those teachers. You're still educating those children. So we need another value of, okay, even if we do shut down, we're saving on these expenses. Okay, we're going to allocate these children to other schools. We still have to educate them. We're going to allocate these teachers to other schools. We still have to pay them. So, okay, maybe it's $737,000, but you're still educating the kids. You're still feeding the kids. You're still paying the teachers. What's that, $500,000? Okay, so
They're not, because they're keeping the building going, because it has to be going.
Yeah, but you gotta keep the building going, and then we're just
If
wasting.
you let me respond, I will. So the assumption that you're making, I want to kind of try to clarify. So in the event that the personnel here were to not be here, they would go into open positions that are already existing, that children are already in the classroom for. So the cost would be eliminated.
So.
Would be redistributed.
No, it would be eliminated. Because the costs already exist in those other places, because those positions already are open.
So what do we do with our kids? Do we care about the kids?
I do. That's why I do what I do. But so what I'm trying to explain, is you have five, let's just say 5 classrooms here that are already budgeted. You eliminate the expenses of 5 classrooms here, and the kids assimilate into these 5 over here. That means 5 go away and go into here that were already there. So there is an elimination of personnel costs.
So why can't that be done in the reverse?
Yeah, I am.
You're not taking into account, if you eliminate this building, how many of these students are going to Bainville and Trenton?
Right.
You're losing the state funding, you're losing the federal funding.
Look at how many students we made just over there. We
They lost
about
100 the first month of the school year.
So that has not been factored in. So what you're telling me is that 100 students go into
I can
Montana.
tell you why.
Bainville's in Montana,
I can
correct?
tell you why they're going to Bainville and Trenton.
Bainville's in Montana.
85% of the students in this 3 township area go either Bainville or Trenton, and I can tell you why.
So we
Because
have
they don't
students
wanna
that
go
live in
to
North
Williston High
Dakota
School.
that are going to Montana.
The bus comes over here and gets them every day.
That's right now where I'm at. My decision
Because
right
they
now,
don't
with my
want to
6th
go to
grader.
Williston High School, and Trenton and Bainville said, hey, we'll send your bus up, pick up your kindergarten.
Renora will come down here.
I can tell you right now, my 6th graders, I don't know what I'm gonna do with them. My option right now is Bainville or Trenton. And I'm,
You may be
I will
option
not
is
send them into
The
town.
big best for everybody is if we just took Round Prairie Township and the rest of Hardscrabble and we annexed it into 6.
That's not my decision.
No, but maybe that would be best. That eliminates the school and the 15 students that are all the way out here.
And the tax dollars that come with it.
That's what I'm saying, we'll lose our tax dollars.
Solves everything.
You want our tax money out?
So again, I know you're
It's an
upset.
option you can bring to them all.
I know you're upset, but
I'm
please
not upset.
understand, I'm sharing information. I'm not making
I'm
any.
sharing information.
Understand.
I'll give you a little piece of history that most people aren't aware of. District 8 started, I believe, in 1956. And I want to say, I think there was 26 townships and 863 students. I think. Not positive on students. Do you know why they started the new rules District 8 rules? Because Williston would not take it.
Yeah, they was set.
They wanted to go to Williston, and Williston would not accept their students, and they had to form their own school district. Until Williston wanted their money. Then they wanted them back. Yeah, you've got a problem with this whole deal. So they can do this. They can take everybody out of this building and meet the legality of that reorg. But most of your students won't follow into Williston, and this whole bunch will immediately annex to District 6, and there's no way they can stop
That's a piece of information that I will take back.
it. Yeah, they can't stop it. They can object, but they can't stop it.
So just a bit of information for you. I know that you don't have a lot of the history on this. The real tough pill to swallow for us is that during the reorg, the school district 8, in the process, along with the reorg, gave away $19+ million worth of taxable land revenue. And so when you talk about the per pupil cost, go back and look at the reorg plan and the land transfers and look at how much per pupil cost it was to give the land and the revenue for Tioga, Ray, and Grenora. And then come back and talk about cost per pupil to us who didn't have any say in whether they could give that land away or not. It was part of District 8's school district, board to board. And it was a board decision. It was a land transfer by legal terms and was a bill passed by people who wrote it up for that reason. And I have proof through the process that Century Code was not followed and that the reorg or the land transfer, one of them should have never passed the county. And if it hadn't passed the county, it should have not gone to the state. And actually have testimony where somebody under oath lied about, or maybe it was a legal technicality where they knew they had intended on, even though they didn't follow Century Code. Pursue would not hold water if I was in a court of law, but it did in that case. So it's a real tough pill for all of us to swallow when you come talk about financial responsibility, because District 8 was financial responsible prior to the reorg. So we're a little jaded, whatever you want to say, at looking at here first. The school, and to speak to the kitchen, is there was a plan in place, $6 million budgeted to do an upgrade on this kitchen and some other schools projects. The board meeting where they were going to sign on the dotted line, they had the plans, the contractor was there, it was a done deal, just sign it. The board president voted no and said, we are not going to do this. Then a year later, went back to the drawing board, had them draw up a whole new plan. Talk about financially responsible. 2 plans that we paid for, and the kitchen was rejected again. So when you talk about that they don't plan on closing this school, I would look back historically and see that there were talks during board meetings, several of them, even in building committee meetings, about closing Round Prairie and Garden Valley, taking the modular and moving it to Williston. So trust isn't there. It's going to be a tough road. You're welcome.
This is going to be a tough question for you, but you say you're invested in this district and we're going to leave the can for us. If it come right down to it, if you resign, it will help the school district and help the kids in this school district. If it come down to it, that's what it goes.
Would I resign?
Yeah. If you resign and step back out of your contract, but that would help this school district.
Probably not. I've just relocated my family 2,000 miles, purchased a home in the community.
That your answer, your answer.
But, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
so
where we're
I probably not, the answer would be no, there's no problem.
We're in the same position. I think we're all on the same page because we financially invested in this area. Our ancestors before us, they built this. They built it up from ground to the top, and then it's just gone. So you talk about investing, moving here, investing your family here, finances, whatever, but you won't give it up. We aren't giving it up.
Well, you want me to be honest, I'm not resigning my job.
No, I understand, analogy speaking.
So, I mean.
We invested into this school.
Understood.
We are the ones who made it.
So-
We're not giving it up.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna get personal, with the group, but, what I'm hearing is a tremendous amount of passion for this school. I'm hearing people that have had generations of family members go through here that really believe that the school needs to continue operating. And tell me if I'm hearing incorrectly. I'm hearing that there is an extreme amount of distrust based on past decisions and or perceptions of why past decisions were made. So I'm hearing that as well. I'm hearing that we need to gather additional information about the number of students that live in the surrounding communities and the number of homes that are going up in this area, and gather that information to bring back. I'm hearing that there are people in here that feel like they've been lied to in the past. I'm hearing that people who send their children to this school believe that their children are getting a fantastic education, and it's where they want their children to be. So correct me if I misspeak, because I've been processing this. Because again, I'm supposed to be bringing information back, and I'm taking that very seriously. But the personal, will you resign your jobs? That's just not something that I'm going to shy away from the answers now. I'm committed to this community, and I'm not going to make it personal, but I'm going to share your comments with the full board, and I will do that as soon as Friday in a summary to them.
The unfortunate part of all of this is you work under the board's direction. The majority of the board is the same board that is seated through all of these issues that we just described. So, let me understand, how does that change when we have spoken in front of the board multiple times? You travel into the city and you're going to change the board's mind. That we've already addressed over multiple issues, multiple years, and you work under their direction. And it is very difficult for me to grasp that you can achieve this and go back to what the populace wants for this year, because the school board, in their infinite wisdom, went through with this reorg, and it's not working, I don't believe, as it was assumed it was going to work. And a lot of it has to do with not only telling us one thing and doing the exact opposite, but they done the same thing with some of the constituents and the taxpayers within the Williston boundaries who said that this was going to be a great deal, and they sold that bill of goods to them as well. And yet, there's many people that said, if I would only know. And now you come into town, and no disrespect, sir, you come into town and you're going to change that majority of that board decision. I find it very difficult, and that is just a comment on my part. I'm not even looking for an answer.
Okay.
Just as a parent, what about transportation?
What about
If you
busing?
Yeah, really.
I've got a kid here. I live 5 minutes, literally right there. What am I going to do about busing?
If you close the school, if the school is no longer, you sent us all to town.
Bus from
I just,
You go to Bingo is what you do.
I just have because District 1 does not offer busing. What does that look like as far as if we're not here, what happens to my 2 younger ones? Do I have to drive into town to take them? If I don't want them to go to Bainville or Trenton, and I want them to go into Williston City, is that something that I have to do as a parent? Do I have to?
I don't know the answer to
So
that.
that's the question
The
that I
only
just
thing I
have.
can say is it's my understanding that the students that are living in town are currently being bused.
Oh, are they?
So clarification.
Oh,
I mean, that's my understanding.
So there's some
So then there's something we have to go to
clarifications
town.
of those boundaries is the city limits were changed, but the school district boundaries were not changed. So in doing so, there were District 8 patrons within the city boundaries, and that caused a lot of confusion in the fact, and a lot of this reorg process was that you had students living across the street from somebody who went to Williston, and your neighbor over to the west is going and is out at Round Prairie. That caused a lot of parents stress. And I believe that the city leadership didn't do their due diligence when they increased those city boundaries. They could have and should have had the school boards or school representatives and addressed the school boundaries at that time. And we would have never had that issue. Also with the planning and zoning, when they allowed developments to come in, there's one development north of Williston, and they said, you can just pick your school district. So this lot has District 8, this lot is Williston. That caused this whole chaos, which kicked off the reorg process, I believe. But in speaking and going back to frustrations and information, is I'm pretty handy at doing my homework and looking online. I am up to my eyeballs fed up with being told, well, you can ask for it. When I go to the website, when I go to the Facebook page for the school districts, for anything, I can't find anything. The school board meetings, we're not allowed to speak. We get a chance, a little window of opportunity. This board is supposed to represent us. If we're not able to speak, I don't believe that they can do that. And that's where this frustration comes from.
So just to clarify, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. There is a public comment period, but it's not a question and answer period. Is that what you're saying?
Nope.
There is a public comment period.
How long is I was told it's 5 minutes.
I believe it's.
Yeah, I think it's something like that, 5
Yeah,
minutes.
but there is a public comment period that, at least I've observed it in the boardroom.
Yeah, there's public comments in it.
But it's not a public question and answer period.
No, just communication, but being able to communicate with any of the board is very, very hard.
Yeah. So there is a public comment period because it is on the agenda.
Yep, 5 minutes. But I did some homework because I found out about this meeting. So I looked online on the school website, and I looked up Round Prairie because I wanted to compare. I wanted to know facility to facility. And I looked at Round Prairie website, and under staff, it said a secretary, a principal, and 2 teachers. So that's not valid. Apparently we have a para sitting here. And so then I went out and I went to, and I'm sorry, it's because it's one of the smaller ones, newest ones, and it was easily accessible. I went to the Innovation Academy. There are 23 staff members. And as I go through that, so we have 2 teachers out here, correct?
3.
3 teachers. So the teachers are even wrong. But at the Innovation Academy, there's a principal, a secretary, a counselor, an instruction coach, special ed, math strategist, reading strategist, library and media specialist, PE and health, band, music, and 6 to 8 technology. Half of the staff isn't even teaching. I don't know what the strategists do, but could we evaluate some of the positions at the existing schools throughout the district? If we have a school with 3 teachers and a principal.
Yeah, can we resource some of the teachers from in town to out here? Is there talk of that?
So let me first address your question. There are a number of positions that exist in other schools that don't exist here. I would agree with you on that. Again, I wasn't part of the process to establish the staffing.
You are now.
But I am now. So the answer to your question is, starting with the administrative staff, I've done an evaluation and I presented information to the board to save dollars. And I think, as I said earlier, that process doesn't stop because I saved $150,000. We need to take a critical lens at all of the monies we spend to make sure it's being spent in the best way possible. So, do I have an answer for you tonight on what that is? No. But,
Just an observation.
yeah.
And the only other question I have is you talk about open positions that are budgeted at other schools and the students from here being placed in there, so the cost from up here would go away.
No, the cost for the personnel is teachers
sorry.
would go away, yes.
So what about take the budget position that's empty and reorganize some of those kids out here and keep the positions here?
Turn it on here.
That's obviously one of the things that I'll take back. Again, we're one district now, so it's not here or there, it's all of us. So we have to, like I said earlier, when we start talking about the resources that are available for District 7, that's the conversation that I want to have.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, talking resources for District 7 and running off a business line, if we're operating this school without positions that are in other schools, why do we need them in the other schools? If this one's operating without them. Can we do that through the whole district?
Well, I can tell you
As well as
that
also the music teacher here. I mean, teachers, there are PE teachers here too. And our kids are thriving with it.
Let me just say that, Dr. Faith didn't have anything.
I understand that.
With that, and let me understand why he's here. The guy who was here before, Innovation School, was all about why he's not here anymore is because some of these things happen. Okay? There's a lot of money got spent on a school like that wasn't actually what we voted for, as a school board today. All right? He just got here. Let him look at what that school has. We, myself, other people are all about that. We've been looking at it and wondering ourselves, how come this, how come that? But he has not had a chance. Actually, he don't even start until another week. But he came in here.
Gives him a chance to get the ground running.
Yeah, it definitely has.
So I'm here.
That's it. Don't buy the other one.
So, can I say something, John? And so just take this for what it's worth. This is our first opportunity to have an open forum like this where we can speak freely. And we have your attention and we have your time.
And that's exactly what we wanted to happen.
That's exactly
what we wanted to have happen. Is for him to be able to come out here and talk to all of you freely, let you speak all you want. We understand that you only get 5 minutes, but we cannot have a board meeting and try to get done. It's already 3 hours, 4 hours, and give somebody 2 hours at a board meeting to do it. Okay, we give people 5 minutes, and every one of you could have 5 minutes. You could have 5 minutes, and then you. So it could be a long time. Okay, but we don't have to, but we do. We're trying to make it more transparent than it has been in the past. I think they're trying.
And I would just encourage you, if you haven't gone on the district website, to go there and answer this question for yourself. Is the information that's on there tonight about Round Prairie open and honest as to what happened at noon? It's there already. It's there. And this meeting will be there for all of the same reasons that you have communicated. Well, so-and-so couldn't be here. Well, I understand that, but they can go back and review it, and then there's a spot on there where you can generate your question and send it in, and I get it.
Well, and so that's great to know because we've asked questions before. And John, to your comment, I've been on a board There are lots of
Oh,
people
you don't understand.
that's been on the school board, so we understand business. But back in the day when I was on the school board, we didn't have this frustration. I'm not saying because just times are changing, but we actually had to create chaos to get people to come out. So, I mean, I would take that people care and people are interested and they want to speak as interest and input, and we should be listening to them.
That's
And
why I'm
welcoming
here.
them.
We are.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this meeting was your idea, and you asked for the board's permission.
That's
John's kind of making this up like it was your
Okay.
and the board's idea, but
It was both. It was both, because my conversation with the board members was to create an environment where people got to have access to ask their questions, because whether you know me well or not yet, this is not the end of our conversations. There will be other forums where people can come out and share their concerns, because people want to be heard. They want to share input, and I want to be the person that provides that conduit to share that information, because John is absolutely right. You can't have a 12-hour board meeting, because it's technically a business meeting, but there is a public comment period for a reason, and that reason is to hear from the public. It's not to have a debate with the public at that point in time, but, the board may say, can you please follow up with this individual regarding your specific question? And I take that serious.
So then I challenge you to have another meeting soon with the information that we have asked, with the numbers we've asked. I challenge you to find a different venue for a board meeting where there's some seating for the public instead of a half a dozen chairs. That is very difficult for the public to come and attend a meeting, is it not? Would you agree?
I would say that the space is limited in that room.
And you've got gymnasiums throughout the system that you can certainly use. And yet, I think a lot of the public feels that it is there for a specific reason, because they don't want us there. And if it's a business meeting and a board meeting, then why cannot, with all the discord and disconnection and transparency that they proclaim that they're wanting to do, then maybe twice a month, you put the board yourself in front of, and just, all you do is take public comment. You don't do a business meeting, but you listen to our concerns in a venue large enough to hold us. If you want to start getting to the bottom of this answers, you have to open everybody up to it, and the board as well. Not your board member and not yourself, to bring back to the board.
So there are some things in the works for us to provide an opportunity for people to share their questions, their comments, their whatever concerns they have in an environment where those would be followed up upon. Amanda, as the communications person, and I have already had multiple conversations about, that happening, because it is missing in a certain respect here for people to be able to ask questions and make comments in a format that makes sense. And that there's not one true environment, Bob, for that to happen. There are many different ways for that to happen. It could be a community forum where I sit and address questions on whatever the topics are that people want to talk about. It could be Round Prairie. It could be, what the curriculum is. It could be discipline. It could be safety. It could be a number of things. And the style that I bring is to be open and to do that in multiple ways.
Do we have, can you give us a ballpark idea of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when you would have numbers that this group has asked for?
Well,
to present?
I have a meeting tomorrow at 8 o'clock with my business manager, so I rest assured that will be a topic of conversation for us to put that information together.
Understandable, but I mean, we as a group would like to know, is it going to be in 2 weeks' time?
It'll be as quickly as I can put it together. It may be 2 weeks, it may be less, depends on the answer she gives me. because I don't do that side of things. I'm not the budget person. She would have access to that, and she does have a year-end budget to close out, which is a tremendous amount of work, and other tasks that she's said to the board that she would provide information on. So as soon as I know, I can reach out. We could put something out in a communication format. I know everyone is signed in here today, and we'll have that information, and I'll email it out.
Thank you.
I guess, what would need to happen to make the numbers work here? I mean, do you need more students? Is that what
Yes,
you guys need, is more
the
students?
quick answer is yes.
So, do you guys get kickback from parents that they don't want their kids this far out? Is that why the numbers have been so low?
We do get pushback. I mean, I can only say, I haven't heard that firsthand from parents. I can only share with you what has been shared with me, is that there are many parents that do not want their children to travel out
This far out?
this far. I mean, that's all I can, that's what I've been told. Bob has, Dr. Smith has shared that with me as well.
Would it be possible to get a head count number that we would need out here to make the numbers work? I mean, is it 10 more
I
students?
think we
Is
could
it
do that,
100
yes.
more students? You know what I'm saying? It would be nice to see a number to see, well, what can we do to make it profitable or worth leaving it open? You know, instead of looking at the negative.
What I heard is there are, I mean, correct me if I misheard this, there are hundreds, at least 100 students that go to school in a neighboring district that live here.
Yes.
That's,
And so
if we
this-
have those 100 students here, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So I
We'd
think
be
this
trying
young
to-
lady sitting in the front, sorry to interrupt, this young lady sitting in the front talked about busing and having to have one student, and I know of several families that this actually happened to, and one was a past employee who was the cook in the kitchen, is she had a student who was, and Dr. Smith, you'll probably remember, a 7th or 8th grader, or a 5th and 6th grader, and there were 2 smaller girls that came here. She couldn't get her other student to
Missouri Ridge.
and still be at home for the bus to pick up the other 2 girls. And so the older one was allowed to attend school here because of, and Round Prairie at that time, District 8 made those arrangements, and like you said, opened up the opportunity for an older student to be here to accommodate the transportation issue. And then it stopped. So they are currently going to Bangville. I can name 3 families right here in this, right across the road from this school that go to Bangville. But the question is you've talked about the number of kids that don't want to be bused out here. But we're willing to put these kids here and bus them into town?
I'm just telling you what I've heard.
No, I know. I'm just making observations. I talk a lot.
I think just voicing for the video too, for them to listen to what we have to say about it, is more or less the comments.
And the other question, and I really will sit down and shut up, maybe, is that, the last one, is that getting those other numbers for the other schools, the per pupil costs. Will there be that documentation or that resource, the numbers, prior to a decision being made by the board?
Like I said, I'm gonna meet with the business manager at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. No, I'm directing this to John.
I think that,
It's an ask.
That's not gonna happen, we're not gonna make a decision without
all the information. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
like I started this with, I'm here to collect input and to answer your questions. And if I can't answer them, I will find the answers and give them to you. I don't know everything. I will admit that. I've only been here a month. I don't know everything. But
We appreciate your time and listening.
Thank you.
Honestly.
so,
I have one more question before we, it sounds like you're gonna wrap up, and I'm sorry guys. If decisions were made, would it be made over the summer and then all of a sudden this fall, we're without, or are we gonna continue on with business as usual this fall, and we're gonna have school here no matter what? Or could decisions be made where all of a sudden this fall, I'm like, where's my kid gonna go to school at? Where's my job gonna be? You know, is that something that's going to happen this summer and then we find out because they emailed us?
So I would point you to the board, that time.
Board would
not to the
find
board,
out.
to the timestamp, because the questions that you're asking were addressed by several members of the board during the last board meeting. I mean, we're all jumping to the conclusion that the school is going to be closed, and it's going to happen immediately, and that's going to be what happens. That's not the intent of why I came out here. That's not the direction the board gave me.
I'm thinking that
So
we
we're
should
having
be
a
open.
conversation about it, and so look at that board that's on the website. Look at that timestamp and listen to the comments that the board and the questions that board members asked, because it's very important to get that context, because there are some really good questions being asked. But again, we have 7 people that are elected to the board, and they have a very difficult job. Very difficult job, because they're listening to the entire district, and everybody has their own issues, correct? And we just want to make sure that before we make a decision, we have all the information.
So the answer is we have.
So I can't say yes or no, but I would hope that wouldn't happen until we vetted this thoroughly.
So if has the budget been created for this upcoming school year?
It is in the process of being created.
We might.
Yes.
We might.
Okay, so with that will probably, with your $150,000 savings, which is probably less than 1% of the budget this year.
It's something. It's better than nothing. But yes, it's a
That's
start.
understandable. But when you're looking at July and school starts in August, it would be a little bit hasty to work that window within 4 to 6 weeks time frame
That's correct.
to make a decision to keep this open or keep it closed.
Right.
Do you feel that it should remain open for at least another year? Start looking at options to get kids transferred here or not. To make a decision of this nature with a window that you're working within, and with the history and the agenda that the board has pushed forth on most of the people in this room, I think it isn't really considered a job, it was an agenda.
Well, again, I would point you to that timestamp, because I think you need to hear what the board members said during that meeting that ended up why I'm here. Because
We don't have to hear too much from the board members because we've got a history with the board members.
I think that they asked some really good questions about, and there were board members that had some concerns about Round Prairie.
My comment still is we've got history. And that history is still very upfront in most people's minds. But I feel that a 4 to 6 week window to say yay or nay, you're changing.
I would agree with you, Bob. That's a tight timeline.
Excuse me? That is a awful tight window for parents to look and see what is going to change with their child if they're not coming here within that type of window.
I don't disagree with you on your comment. You just moved. You just moved. You did sit down though.
I did. I changed my mind, but, you know, people talk and then I get an idea. So, I'm just curious, and again, we appreciate you listening, and we know that you're new. We are all frustrated, but, and again, I might question or direct this to John and to you, is one of the board meetings that I listened to, Sarah had a very interesting idea and that each one of the board members come out and spend time in the schools. I would challenge the board and ask how many times they've been out here during the school day to see what goes on in this school, and to see the culture, and to see the kids, and to see what happens, and how they're thriving out here.
I'll take that back.
Thank you.
All right, so I will stay as long as you want me to stay, as long as you're nice to me. I'll stay as long as you need me to stay. If you have other questions that, as we turn the camera off, I will say this, Holly, you're a very passionate lady. She's been passionate twice today. And she shared with me that she explained that she was very passionate, and I told her this. I appreciate that because these are your kids, right? And I have kids as well, and I'm very passionate about them, so I would expect that. So as we move forward, this is your first opportunity to meet me. It won't be your last. And I will tell you this, I will be in the schools, and I will be visiting classrooms. I was out here, and Dr. Smith and I played a little music together while I was here and visited.
He plays a good guitar.
And got to know each other a little bit, and he was very open about the challenges of student enrollment here at this school. So the challenge is just what it is. It's a challenge. So if the end result ends up being let's fill the school up, then we're going to have to do that together because no one person can do it. And if that's what it takes, if that's the direction that this goes, then we have to work on it together. But I hope you understand that this is not picking on any one school. This is looking at the future and the resources that we have to make the best decisions we can. And like I said, this is the first of many more forums that will happen during my tenure. Hopefully they'll all be as pleasant as this one. Right? I mean, it was very good. I mean, this is a very passionate topic. You guys were very, very respectful. And I appreciate that because I am new and I'm getting to learn how things work.